So Eric is the CIO for Mirabito Holdings in New York, and he's been the forefront of the EMV technology adaptation in the convenience store industry, having the first store on the East Coast to take EMV payments indoors and the first store in North America to take EMV payments at the pump. He is also at the forefront of fleet fueling automation development in the retail fuel delivery space. And finally, Eric is also a professor at Binghamton? Yeah, okay. University and Elmira College, where he teaches business courses. So we're really thrilled. Eric was last year's innovator of, well, Eric's team. Mirabito Holdings was the innovator of the year for barcoding last year. And so one of the main reasons why we wanted to bring Eric back and have him talk to you a little bit about innovation today. So the whole goal of, I'm just gonna leave my notes. The whole goal of our little interview today is just to kind of give you a window into, what made Mirabito Holdings, kind of how did they excel at innovation? How did they end up as the winner of last year's Innovator of the Award? Kind of the things that he's seen and the ways that he's been able to kind of talk through innovation, understand what works, what doesn't work. And if you guys on the side of the room want to move over, we can actually push up a little bit so you can see us better. So just to talk through some of his experiences, and hopefully through what the stories that Eric shares, you all have some great takeaways for your own business in terms of innovation. So thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Now, Eric is not mic'd, I am, so if we run into troubles, just everyone raise their hand if you suddenly can't hear Eric, but I don't think we're gonna have a problem.
I've never been told that I'm quiet, so I figured the mic just wasn't gonna work, but let me know if you can't hear me.
Is there anything you wanted to tell the group about yourself that was missing from that bio?
I think the biggest piece is nobody sees the humor about me sitting up here talking about innovation more than myself. Because when I started at Mirabito's 13 years ago, and again, I know everyone's sitting here going, fuel guy, well, where's the technology? You stick the hose in you stick the nozzle in the whatever, and you pull the trigger, right? That's it. That's all there is to it. Well, I thought that too. I thought it was going to be the easiest IT job ever, right? So 13 years ago, I went into an industry that was very much behind the times in technology. About 20 to 30 years behind the times in technology. And I went to work for a small family-owned company that prided themselves on two aspects. One, that they still had the morals that their great-grandparents had started the business with 80 years before. And two, that they ran the business the exact same way as their great-grandparents did 80 years before. Now, I can't fault them. It was a successful business model. It was excellent for a small business environment, and it was perfect for an industry that was 30 years behind the time technology-wise. So the first 7 years of my career, not very interesting. We can skip over it. The last 5, well, this industry started to see a technology revolution, right? And innovation was a very scary topic across the industry because Mirabito's wasn't unique from the perspective of they'd done it the way they've always done it. All of our competitors were the same. So anytime you started to talk about changing that model, you had a lot of pushback.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's a very common saying out there in the audience that people feel that the same way. I'm in a space where innovation's a scary topic. So in that, can you take us through a little bit about maybe some of your perception on how that started to change within Mirabito, and maybe kind of walk us through what started that 5-year run?
Sure. So, quite honestly, it was a lot of infighting. No. What it was, I will say this about my executive team and the ownership of the company. They are forward thinking, right? And they've always had a forward thinking mindset. So really, it wasn't a matter of showing them that there were more profitable ways, more efficient ways to do business. It was alleviating the concerns of all this verbiage around technology incorporation, that it's big dollar spend and it's high risk, right? So when you look at, and this concept of innovation, it's scary to a lot of companies because everything you look at, the majority of projects fail. You invest a lot, you'll get 80% of the way, and then you'll have to abandon the project, right? And if you're trying to sell yourself and sell your idea, it makes it very challenging. So what we did as a team, and it's not me, my team do the work, I take the credit.
That sounds familiar.
I
like it
a
too.
lot.
I like it too.
But what we did as a team was we started to look at processes, right? And we started with simple process re-engineering. And we said, and then we prioritized it. So we looked across the organization, we put our technology folks in fuel trucks, in tractor trailers, in stores. And we said, try and identify where all this education you have, all these skill sets you have, where can we utilize it? And then let's pick one area that we feel we can have the biggest impact, and let's show them, let's never say innovation. Let's never say system change. Let's never say technology project. Let's talk about process redesign. And let's build an efficiency and a profitability model around the process, and let's see where we go.
Yeah, and I think, for those who were able to listen through Amita's keynote, I think awareness was that first kind of step that she talked about, and I think that's what I'm hearing reiterated here, is that the first step is kind of knowing where you are, who you are, what you're currently doing. Can you talk us through some of the things that you saw, maybe things that surprised you as you just started to say, hey, let's just look at our processes as they are. Are we doing things the way that we actually thought we were supposed to be doing them? Did you have any of those moments?
Yeah, absolutely. Bottom line is culture is a very important factor, right? And employees and owners and all of these different entities, your vendor partners, you get very comfortable with what you do on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And the number one item that really rose to the top for me was the response, we've always done it that way, right? So you would have 3 different departments working on the same exact spreadsheet with 3 different sets of numbers leading to 3 different results. And you'd ask them why they're doing it. Well, we've always done it that way. Well, maybe we should just have one control group. No. We all do it that way. But to be honest with you, that was kind of the light bulb moment that said, all right, that's how we attack it, right? Yep. We show that just because you've always done it that way, maybe we need to look at that.
So let's dig into kind of a concrete example. So talk us through maybe the first application where you said, we're going to dig into this process, and talk us through not just the observation of the process and what that meant to Mirabito, but also how did you bring people along as you started to look at new innovation?
Sure. So I won't give you the first project, but I'll give you one that stands out because it's got some humor to it, right? So
we like humor.
We started down this path of innovation, and we focus on the stores, and we realize that retail's changing, the environment's changing, everybody recognizes the environment's changing, and a convenience store is no longer a place to get gas. It's where you have to create an experience with the consumer, and you really have to understand that consumer, right? So we get huge into loyalty, and we get huge into private payment, right? Because credit card fees are going up, and so we put all that together, right? And we build this store model where it's more automated, we can measure customer interactions, we can measure customer trends, right? And so we're doing pretty well. And then every time the internet goes down, we lose everything, right? So we start on a high note of customer buy-in being extremely high. They like the loyalty program, they like the gas savings. We're integrating with other vendors or other retail outlets, and we're rolling back the price of the pump. When gas was $4.50 a gallon, people were at our stores paying a penny a gallon, and they loved it. Those were wow moments. But every time the internet was down, none of it worked. And they got very irate very quickly. When gas is $4.50 a gallon and you want it for a penny and you can't get it, that's a problem, right? Yeah. So from that perspective, we said, well, what can we do, right? And to be honest with you, I've always believed in, there's 3 necessary requirements if you're going to be innovative, right? And you're going to develop it. The first one is you have to get buy-in at the top. The executive management team, you want to make them project sponsors, you want to make them project owners, because ultimately they have the say. They control the investment dollars, right? So you got to get them to buy in. If you can get it to where they think it's their idea, you're doing really well, right? Number 2, you got to have the employees to buy in, because nothing can kill a project than the end users fighting back against it. Doesn't matter how good it is, if they don't believe in it, it's not going to happen, okay? And quite honestly, out of the gate, when you're starting down this road to technology reinvestment, you got to have strong vendor partners, right? So barcoding's conference, I'm sitting here, right? So I pick a barcoding initiative, right? So I've got a problem. I've got internet dropping. You know, I don't care who your internet provider is, they're never up 100% of the time, even though the bill comes in on time every month. But it's becoming a bigger challenge. We're becoming more dependent on 24/7, 365 uptime requirements, and we're getting about 80%. And we're starting to lose customer confidence. So we started looking at all different kinds of technologies. And we realized there's 100 different ways you can go. It's a bigger dollar investment than we really wanted to put in a backup method. We need some help. That's when we started to have the conversations with barcoding. And you know, I'm the first one to admit, I don't have all the answers, my team doesn't have all the answers, right? The reason, and I pride myself on running lean and being very effective, making decisions rapidly, educated decisions, but I do that with a network of content experts. And it wasn't me coming to barcoding, it was actually another vendor that said, you have to check them out, and I looked and I said, supply chain management, what's that got to do with data backup, right? Because nothing. Not so much, it does, right? So again, they're interconnected vendor relationships, and all of a sudden they're laying out a solution that I was leery of, but I was optimistic enough to give it a shot. And it completely changed how we now run our store environment, right? So the humorous part of this was at the same time, you know, as I'm looking to come up with a better way to ensure 100% uptime, I needed to order a phone line in one of our stores. And I called the phone company, and the phone company in this area says, oh, we're out of numbers. Well, what do you mean you're out of numbers? They said, we're out of numbers. Our circuits are full. So there's a jewelry store that's closing in 2 months. Wait till they close, we'll give you their numbers. Okay, so I needed it for a Subway, and Subway was getting calls on gold and silver for, you know, the next 6 months, right? But it made me realize it wasn't simply about this data backup requirement. Now I need to figure out phone architecture. I need to figure out a new way to drive communication. And another thing I'll tell you about the stores, and it's sad, but it's true, they're a huge security liability, right? And especially today, I mean, I can't tell you the number of times we get held up in areas where you would never think it would happen. And for us, we're security minded, we're employee first focused, and it's unacceptable to do anything that's gonna put any of that in jeopardy. And we spend big money to make sure that our employees are safe. Pendants and silent alarms, but telephone is still the #1 way that they call. So when I came to barcoding, I explained to them it wasn't simply, you know, I'm trying to ensure my customer base remains content. I need to ensure the security and safety of my employees. Mm-hmm. And that's the emphasis we put on it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. There's a lot of takeaways in there, so I'm going to try to kind of unpack that a little bit. But I think some of the things that you heard was, well, one, it's never as simple as it appears, right? So we dig into something and we think that we're solving for X, right? And then all of a sudden, all these other factors and all these other interconnected things come to play. I'm reminded of, I went to a conference with Deepak Chopra at a marketing conference called Inbound, and he talked about the body as a process and all these systems actually very closely connecting to create this whole that we call like a physical thing. And that's what I think of as business too. I mean, so it's never just like I need to solve this one issue. It's going to affect and be interconnected with so many other things, so many other ideas. And finding partners, whether they're external or internal, to bring diverse kind of ideas to the table, I think was really important for you, right?
Absolutely.
That
was the key.
So to talk about, let's go back to that phrase, I was a little leery. I was a little leery. Let's unpack that a little bit. So talk us through like really what was behind that? Like, was it just, I have to go out on a limb for this solution within the company and kind of my reputation's on the line? Talk me through what was making you nervous.
Yeah, I'd say that because, at the time I wasn't on the executive team. I was working my way towards it, and really the tagline was, all right, Eric, we'll go with you, but if it doesn't work, you're out, right? So
that would probably make anybody nervous, right?
I better be 100% on this, right? Well, really, I said, all right, well, it's going to work. I'm going to find a job, but we'll see how it goes. But I'll be honest with you, there's a number of vendors, and everybody has them, where there's big promises. On paper, it looks great, right? When you come in and the demo's done, it looks like a perfect fit. But then when you actually get into implementation, right, all of a sudden the support starts to back off. Once you sign the contract, right, now you're on your own, okay? I've had a number of those partnerships. They don't last long, right? So I do an undue amount of effort to ensure that those that I partner with are, number one, technology first focused. Well, I shouldn't say that. Security first focused, technology second focused, right? And that they have the reputation and the determination and, that they have the same passion. Passion's a great word. That they have the same passion for success that I do, right? And that, when I say it's Leary, anytime I start a conversation with anybody, you've got to prove to me, right? It doesn't matter if it's a new employee, if it's a new executive that comes on board, if it's a new entry-level clerk, right? You've got to prove that the mindset and the passion is there. Because when you're a small team and a growing organization, you don't have a lot of leeway for mistakes.
Yeah, and I think that's good feedback for all of us to remember too as we embark on different relationships to grow our business, right? There is that period of time where you have to kind of prove, but if you also think back to what Shane said about acquisitions, right? It's more about that cultural fit than anything that sometimes undoes things. So in the case of technology, a lot of times it's the adaptation by the users, right? So that's what kind of will undo everything. Well, I wanna talk a little bit about, so I believe personal and professional relationships. If anyone here has read Simon Sinek, I'm like a huge fan, right? To start with why you want to work with people who believe what you believe. If you haven't read it, it's a great book. But I think one of the things that made this project successful is that we both are organizations that believe in kind of understanding the process and trying to drive down to that root cause before rolling something out. And I know that we've talked a lot about this and tell the audience a little bit more about that theory, about innovation really being not a implementation of something brand new, but of these components that you bring together that are tried and true.
Absolutely, and quite honestly, it can be both, but it's much more realistic from an expectation perspective if you drive change incrementally, right? So being able to do that, but again, it's being able to do that, but also having the partnerships that say, you know what, we'll get to the contract later. Let's redesign the process. Let's show, number one, that we can redesign it. Number two, that we have the solution that's best able to redesign it. And number three, let's demonstrate it, right? That makes your job very easy, because now when you're going to get the buy-in, when you're going to get the investment, you have a working model. And anytime you can get before, I don't care who it is, and say, here's what you're investing in, it's right here, it's working. And there's your cost, exponentially over wherever we're trying to implement, but that's what you're buying. You're writing your own check, right? And that being said, it sounds great, but there's a huge cost investment from the vendor, from yourself. I mean, everybody says, well, Eric, your costs are fixed costs. Your employees are salaried, and yeah, but it's a large set of daily requirements that we have. It's a large set of responsibilities that we have, and anytime you're going above and beyond that to bring new functionality, it's taxing. Okay, so it requires commitment on both sides, but it is very difficult. It is not an easy task to find entities that have that mindset and believe that, we're gonna put our money where our mouth is. We believe that we have the solution. We're gonna build the solution for you, and then we'll charge you on the back end. And that's key. I mean, it really is, because when I talk about having the dedication, having the belief, right? It makes a lot of these projects feasible, especially initially, right? Once you have a track record, once you have 4 or 5 projects that have been successful, and you can demonstrate ROI in less than 12 months, now all of a sudden, all aspects of the business are willing to listen to your next idea. But starting out and building those first few successes, it's really imperative. right? Because three bad experiences and you're never going to get anything else off the ground.
It's very true, that political capital, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you talk through some of the results that you saw initially?
Yeah, I absolutely. I mean, we were able to secure more government contracts for fueling because the reliability was there. You know, we have now a number of emergency services contracts because they know that they can go to our station in the middle of the night if they need gas for the fire truck or diesel. They're going to get it. It's going to be up. Customer satisfaction went way up. We were able, from a marketing perspective, to drive higher value programs because there was consumer confidence in them. And quite honestly, by having this data infrastructure the way it drove further innovation. And the best part was, by switching my telephone infrastructure to digital, it saved me $300,000 a year. You know how much the data backup cost? Less than that. So in 1 year, by what I saved in phone lines, I paid for everything and gave the consumer that experience we were looking for. And the employee, the security, above and beyond, because with a historical phone line system, you cut that line and they're dead.
Right.
With this, it's cellular, and it's going to be up when they need it. So it was
Pretty good,
very
right?
professional.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good, Eric. That's pretty good. So you know why we gave him the award now? You seeing that? Okay, that's good. Well, I in my role, so obviously kind of marketing, but I think of it more broadly in terms of customer experience. I think a lot of what drives organizations, we talk about it a lot at Barcoding in terms of, well, a lot of the technology or the solutions that we bring to bear might help cut costs, you know, operationally, or kind of increase opportunities for revenue or cash. But at the end of the day, just like we are always looking at this, that customer experience arm is becoming more and more imperative. And understanding that from some of the research I've done, right? So if you think about an economic progression model, right? So you start with a commodity. A commodity sits exactly where it sits. And then there's incremental improvements, right? So the coffee bean becomes, grounds that you can actually make into a coffee cup, brewed coffee. But it's not till you get to that Starbucks level where you have an experience and you feel that this isn't just a company that's delivering me some ground coffee beans or a cup of coffee, but they are giving me this space to learn, to work, to connect. That is what I heard even when you talked about convenience stores. It's everything that in our world, we are all looking for opportunities to create those spaces. So I think it's interesting where you find that in a lot of industries where you may not necessarily think about that.
Sure.
So where I want to go with this is talk about when you're thinking about that customer experience, because clearly solving a foundational issue like the connectivity piece was key. What other things kind of came out of that in terms of, okay, what else can we do?
Right. So this starts us down a path of mobile connectivity, right? And you know, verified, certified mobile connectivity, but also secure mobile connectivity. So then we started looking at the other side of the business, right? The home heat and commercial fuel delivery. And we started looking at those processes, and we realized, you know, if we take that, a similar, not the same, but take a similar application we did in the stores, and we stick it in a fuel truck, that fuel truck becomes an office. Right, a secure office. So what can we do with it? Well, this one was a hard sell. And it was a hard sell because we had technology in place for that division, and it was 100% vendor supported. So now I went back to the company and I said, I think I can make us a market leader in terms of delivery automation on this side of the house. And I can prove that the efficiency and the cost reduction, you know, the increased profitability as a result of all of this will be significant. But you've got to let me develop a solution for somebody else's product. That's a challenge, right? Because now you're investing money to make someone else better. And I don't have any proprietary rights to that solution. I know that I'm going to develop it, and they're going to go and resell it to other customers, and they're going to be my competitors. So then it's a matter of, it's going to be a better customer service experience. We're going to probably have 1 to 2 years of first mover status. And really, you have to build that economic model and show that even though you're building something and the competitor is going to have it eventually, there's enough value there initially, and then there's enough intrinsic value long term to make it worth it anyway. And that's really the basis we went off of. And of course, we got with that vendor and we said, this is what we're gonna do. And they said, no, you're not. And we said, okay, well, and I'm a little hard-headed. So anytime someone tells me no, I said, all right, you're out. You've been with us for 30 years. You can't throw us out. No, you're out. We do it or you're out. Of course, the owner said, you never talked to us. I said, it'll be okay. So they said, okay. So we got the buy-in. We went to work and we basically took their solution, turned it on its head a little bit and made it fit our model. And then they looked at it and said, that works pretty good. You want to sell us some of it? So, at the end of the day, it worked out. But what it was really was, it's all cost justification. It's all profitability justification. And sometimes the answer that when you first look at it goes, that doesn't make sense. It's going to benefit others. It's going to actually, somewhat have us lose a little bit of competitive ability. It may not be the case, because what's the other solution? We fully develop a back office system ourselves internally. Yeah, that's higher risk than I was willing to take. Now, I will say I'm developing a couple of systems internally, right? It's led to that, and we're doing full system development, and we're actually building one card system that we're thinking of taking to market. But that's the progression. It didn't start there, and it's just now, and even now, I'm utilizing the university, and we've built graduate study programs to offset cost and to do it economically responsibly so that if it doesn't work, it's not that drastic failure, right? It's the understanding of the students have a benefit, we have a benefit, let's see where this goes, right? So it's out of the box thinking, and that's another important piece.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you can get creative in terms of also funding these ideas. So getting buy-in, but also what are those other areas where you can get, that subtle kind of hedge, I guess you could say. So in terms of the students, or in terms of, it sounds like you already have ideas for all the next things that you want to do. Can you talk through, though, the continuous improvement process that goes on with some of the things that you've already rolled out?
And it's funny you bring that up, because my 5-year plan throughout this entire experience was, I'm going to do full system replacements, upgrades, and build a new foundation, right? You're going to see returns. I'm going to pay for it, but you're not going to see the ultimate return. I'm going to go through and I'm going to warehouse and facelift the entire environment. Then the next 5 years, your monetary spend with me is going to be low. I'm then going to take the next 5 years and I'm going to take all this new basis and I'm going to build on the capabilities, right? And I'm going to start to really utilize the intent of these systems, and I'm going to do it through integration and through increasing performance. That's exactly what we're doing. So it was, in my instance, it was an easier sell because we knew we were archaic. We knew we had to get with the current times, and we knew that technology was going to be important. And we're an acquisition and growth firm. So we knew that in order to acquire and to expand our market reach, we had to automate a lot of this stuff, right? But really now, the true benefit's really being seen. And I'm able to show huge increases in profitability because my cash outlay is next to nothing. Because I did this foundational upgrade, and now we're just capitalizing. My team's expanded. It's almost double now than what it was when we were doing these system replacements and these integrations. It's almost double, and the reason it's almost double is because I'm showing the value of just going through and warehousing processes and redefining. And I will say this, when we had those wins initially, we put a lot of effort into the marketing piece and showing the employee the benefit to them. And it's not easy. When you take a truck driver who I have to have a pager for because they live so far out in the country, they don't have internet, they don't have a cell phone, they never have used a computer, and now you stick a tablet and control their entire day off that technology, that buy-in is extremely difficult. But when you do it by pressing 3 buttons, and it makes their day shorter and it makes their job easier, then when you come to the next project and you say, now I want to do instant messaging. Well, okay, the last one worked, let's try this, right? Yeah. And I always look for the most difficult employee and the least difficult employee, right? And that's my test bench initially. Why? Because that most difficult employee, if I can get buy-in, everybody else is going to do it. if nothing else, because of pride. Because if Bob's always complaining and Bob likes it, I better not complain, right? So, and then I always get the least difficult employee to actually help me work through it, because they're the ones that are gonna give the most positive feedback. But, I mean, that's what we've done.
Yeah, so do you have, I mean, it sounds like you have had, you're in an organization that kind of recognized where they were in the scope of the world and said, hey, we want to take some steps to grow. Do you have advice for those in the room that might be saying, hey, that's great that Mirabito is like that, but my company is not like that? How do I come to the table maybe and try to get something going if my company doesn't seem to want to ever, be in that growth mindset?
It takes persistence. There's probably 4 times I should have been fired. I thank my CEO multiple times that he didn't. But number one, it takes belief, right? So I teach a system development course at BU. In fact, we had class last night. And, the number one thing I tell these students, and they're top-notch students, is you have to believe above and beyond everybody else that what you're doing is best for the company. If you can't convince yourself, just don't even try. Move on. Find something else, or figure out a way to do it a little different to convince yourself, right? But if you believe in it fully, that's going to come off more than anything else, right? And secondly, put it into real numbers. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a fully customer-facing initiative and you can't see realized financial value at the top level. There's financial value. Get creative to show how to, number one, demonstrate it, number two, measure it. And to be honest with you, when you have the accountants in the room, they like numbers. When you have the ownership in the room, they like numbers. But not just numbers, giving them the ability to track and prove that what you're telling them is correct. And really, that's been the model that it's worked well for me. It's worked well for other individuals that I have a lot of interaction with. And it is. It's scary, right? It's scary at the face value. Nobody really likes change. Everybody likes a feeling of comfortability and understanding that when they come in, they know exactly what they're going to do, and it feels right. And with a lot of this, whether it's a minor change or a major change, you're upsetting that. Yeah. And so it's a lot of perspective, but I will say people buy into it if they really feel you believe in it, right? So if you're leading the charge, and I tell my team this, I will never ask any of you to do anything I won't. The problem is I'll work 72 hours straight to get this done, so you're kind of stuck, right? But I make sure that before I go with anything that they all believe it. And if they don't, then they better get up in front of me and tell me why, because it's much more beneficial having a team behind you that is fully invested as well.
That's great. Actually, it really resonates with me because the very first executive forum was brand new to barcoding, 7 years ago. So there was a little bit of that same feeling of, okay, I'm gonna step out on a limb here and say this is what I want to do. And I was very fortunate to be in a place where that was kind of heard and implemented. But it can be scary. And change management, I mean, I think a lot of things are interesting, right? So Eric is the CIO, I'm in the marketing realm, but a lot of things that he's saying, I actually recognize very immediately, which is, that whole concept of knowing your audience and really understanding who they are, what their work habits are. So not everything fits every person. So, to your point about, the delivering a data-driven message to someone who is a data-driven person, but then also in terms of your users, thinking through what they are like in terms of their day-to-day working environments, right? So if they don't have access to internet, if they live in different environments that are not the same as yours, from a marketing perspective, we might think of things like, they might need a more tangible piece that would help them through change, right? Something that's printed that they can take with them versus our new natural instinct to send a video. Right, so not every size fits all, and I think that's what's really interesting about how you've been able to roll these out is seeing those whole people and delivering messages that are going to resonate to them because you understand, kind of what they're looking to do.
So a funny aside, she brings that up. A month ago, I get pulled in. Hey, we like how you can understand the staff and customer base and your interactions and you know, this out of the box thinking of how to create new experiences, you're now in charge of marketing. I said, that's great, but I don't know anything about marketing. They go, oh, you know more than you'll figure it out. Good luck. So now I'm in charge of marketing.
Now you know who to call.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it's kind of nice. I got Giants tickets.
Yes, it's a good job.
There's a whole world going on here. So,
oh, welcome.
The IT guy's in charge of marketing.
Welcome.
Beautiful.
Well, we could obviously talk for a while, and it's not usually a problem for us. But I do want to take a pause at this moment and just try to see. We've got about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes left. So I thought it might be a great time to see if there's any questions out in the audience.
You look relatively young from here. And I'm curious, you got a lot of leadership experience. I'm curious where you got it from.
I'll be honest with you. I was very fortunate. I'm 38 years old. Okay. I came to work for Mirabito 13 years ago. I'm not so good at math. That's why I'm not an accountant. 2006. And when I started, I was bottom of the food chain. I was actually a bartender 10 years before that, right? So bartending experience is excellent when it comes to.
I was a bartender too.
See?
Yeah,
it works
it's good
very
stuff.
well. After the first year, I kind of got the lay of the company, and I realized it was a family company and family priority for next level management. But there was no family members that wanted to do IT because it was a pain, right? So I walked in and I said, I'm going to be the next CIO. And they laughed at me. And I said, no, I'm serious. And they laughed at me again. But then that was my focus. And it's, you know, it was a matter of me just driving towards that. So I say I'm fortunate because eventually somewhere around year 3, year 4, they finally got tired of me just hounding them. And they said, all right, fine, here's enough chain to go and hang yourself with. Let's see how you do. And you know, but I will say with every failure, they didn't throw me out. And with every success, they never let me celebrate. And they said, well, that's nice, but now tomorrow's a new day. Let's see what you do next. And at the end of the day, you know, they finally said, you know what, you've proven yourself, and here you go. And then in terms of the university aspect, that one's kind of funny too, because when I got my MBA, I had a professor that came up to me and said, listen, we're starting a doctorate program, and I think you're perfect to go through the doctorate program. So here's the deal. We'll let you go through for free, and you'll get us certified, and everybody will be happy. Now, at that point, I was at graduation with my wife and my daughter and my parents. And my father looks at me and he goes, you did it. And I said, yep. He goes, took you 12 years. You could have been a doctor twice. Good job. So I looked at the professor and I said, listen, I appreciate it, but the only thing I'll need a doctorate for is if I'm going to teach, and I'm never teaching. Well, then I find out that Binghamton University does graduate programs with local firms. If there's someone on staff that's is a professor, is a faculty member, they'll give you a team of students for an entire year to do a development project. And they're master level programmers. And I said, oh, I got to get this. So I went to the bar and started talking to professors, and eventually one got me in. And so it's funny because I never saw myself in that role, but it's very, very rewarding. Above and beyond, forget the corporate piece of it. It is very rewarding, and it's something, you know. And on the corporate side, I hired the project lead that worked with us last year, and he had offers from much larger companies for much more money. And I said to him, "Why do you want to work for me?" And he said, "Well," he goes, "It's like a large-scale organization, only less professional." He said, because in a large-scale organization, you're going to be regulated on what you can touch and affect. He goes, here, you'll let me do anything. That's correct, if you prove yourself. So it's really, I can't point to what it is. I also drove limos. I'm a nationally licensed horse racing official. I did that for 6 years, all while working at Mirabito's. You know, the bartending, it's a lot of it's really just luck. It's just the right timing, the right people, and the right organization. Because if you put me in a regular corporate environment, I'm not making it 30 minutes. I'll be the first one to tell you. I am too much of a loudmouth.
Me neither.
So it was just the right fit.
I also think, I mean, I love hearing stories of people who have such diverse, you know, places that, I mean, you probably don't even realize it, but you're pulling from all of those things, right?
Absolutely.
So it's like all these different foundational building blocks that you have in your life that boop, 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 and then all of a sudden people say, well, how'd you get to where you are? And you're like, oh, I don't really know anymore, but I know that all these things kind of factored in, even some of those stranger little paths, you know, they all come into play. So other questions for Eric? Oh, here we go.
We operate in a union environment. So if you operate in where you couldn't remove those roadblocks and you didn't buy in, what would you done different?
I could not.
Yes.
You know, I will say, sometimes there's environments where, no matter how hard you push, it's not going to happen. But I have a story for that too, so I'll tell it to you. I too worked in a union environment when I did the horse racing officiant. I started doing the licensing. They put in a new computer system, and they needed someone that knew computers. That's how I knew nothing about horse racing, right? So the state hires me to do the licensing. Well, 3 days into it, the computer system was horrible, right? So I go to the director, I say, listen, I can fix this. He goes, no, you're in a union, you can't. So I fixed it because I was bored, right? My job took me about 15 minutes a day. I'm there for 6 hours, why not? So the director comes down and says, I got to talk to you, we have a problem. I said, yeah. He said, you work more than anybody else in this position. And now the board's on me about it. So every day you have to take 2 hours and go do something while you're on the clock. I go do what? He goes, I don't care, go to lunch, go sleep in your car, but you can't be here. For 2 hours a day for the rest of the season, you're out of here. Well, that's stupid. He said, well, that's the rules. And then 2 weeks later, the director of IT came down and goes, do you want to show me what you did and how you did it? Now, am I recommending you do that? No, but I will say this. If you can find the right individual to champion, you can get through those roadblocks. But it's not always easy, and it's not always feasible, and sometimes, just like in my personal life where you need these somewhat seemingly unrelated hops, and in a union environment, it's also challenging because there's a hierarchy and a lot of sensitivity around not jumping over that hierarchy. But I will also say it also comes down to how much you believe in it and how far you're willing to take it.
That's great. We probably have time for maybe one more quick one if there's another question out there.
Did you have a change management system in place when you were going through all this?
No, and that was my biggest problem, right? Because I will say we don't have a formal one now, but we have much better control processes. The first few projects we did were just literally by the seat of our pants, and that was a problem. I put more in finalized development because I did not put enough effort into initial solution design and analysis. Analysis is always the one that gets skated over the most, and that's really where the importance is, and I will stand by that. And my model is completely different. But you're absolutely right. Documentation, I hate it. I can't stand it. I would rather be effective and use my time, towards the development side. It's essential. And as I've grown, I've learned that those functions is required. Now, do I want 7 layers of red tape? Absolutely not. I will always fight to minimize it, but it is a requirement, and you're best suited to incorporate it.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Eric. Really appreciate your time.